Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our third information session during Go Global Week. It's great to see so many of you registered and joining us today. We're going to look at, we're going to focus on Europe today for looking at some of the programs that are available. In today's session, we'll give you an introduction to ourselves and the Global Opportunities team. And the service that we provide to students. This session will include an overview of the opportunities for you to study, work and volunteer abroad. And we see it as a good starting point for your research. And we would also encourage you to attend some of the other information sessions running through Global Week, including the International Fair, which takes place tomorrow from 12 to 2. You'll also get a chance to hear from 3 students, Michelle, Emer and Thomas, who have been out on Erasmus placements and get to hear about their experience and how they got on as well. But before we talk about or hear about their experiences or talk about the programs, it still feels really strange to be talking to you today about global opportunities. Although a degree of normality has returned, we are all still experiencing the effect of the pandemic in some way. Last academic year, some of the opportunities that we promoted have been cancelled or changed to virtual offerings. This brought a new way of working, and we had to reevaluate what we could offer students. The university also took the decision not to allow students to travel in semester 1, but during semester 2 we managed to get some students out on study and work placements abroad as the restrictions eased. Although there are a few of the opportunities that we promote that will not run during this academic year due to the pandemic, we can still offer a good range of work, study and volunteering opportunities. And a risk assessment process has been put in place to ensure and maintain your safety. The university continues to closely monitor the global pandemic situation and the travel advice issued by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. So we're hopeful that as we move forward into semester 2, that we'll return to a full complement of offerings. The other obstacle which we are encountering is Brexit. Students who hold a UK passport will have to apply for a visa to study or work in their host country. This process has proved difficult with delays in processing, long appointment waiting lists, added costs, and constantly changing guidance and requirements. And this does put a lot of stress on students and also on ourselves. Although there have been a few hitches along the way, the vast majority of our students for this academic year have been able to get to their host destinations and are beginning their new experience. We would expect that the process will get smoother as time progresses and as we move into semester 2. So in terms of the Global Opportunities team, our aim is to promote and support students with international study and work programs. We're quite a small team of 6 based in the Student Guidance Centre. And for those that are unfamiliar where the Student Guidance Centre is, it's just directly across from the main landing building above the bank. Today, like I said earlier, is about giving you an insight into the opportunities. We would encourage everyone to review our website to find out more specific details on these programs. We engage with students on a daily basis through email, through video calls, our virtual drop-in sessions, and we organise a range of information sessions. So after Go Global Week, we'll be running sessions on specific programs right throughout semester 1 and 2. Please, if you're interested in finding out more about individual programs or going to these sessions, go on to My Future and you can see all the sessions there and you can sign up to them. And you can also book a drop-in appointment, a virtual drop-in appointment with ourselves and the Global Opportunities team. So I'll get started with our programs, and the range of programs that we're promoting today are Erasmus Study, Erasmus Work. I'll touch on the Turing scheme. We'll hear from our students who went out in Erasmus placements, and then my colleague Rory will talk about the European Movement Ireland, the Student Language Bureau and summer schools. So in terms of Erasmus study, I suppose Erasmus has always been our most popular programme. Each year, and if you exclude maybe last year, we would have approximately 80 or so, 80 and above students who would go out on optional or compulsory study exchanges through the Erasmus programme. This is across all schools, and Queen's has over 200 links with institutions all over Europe. Some schools have loads of links. For instance, history, anthropology, politics and philosophy have about 40 links with institutions over Europe, and some others may have less than that, some have less than 10. The links have been set up for mutually beneficial study exchange, and have been running, and some of them have been running for decades. Erasmus itself has been running for years, and as you may be aware, unfortunately the UK government has decided not to participate in Erasmus at the end of its current cycle that ends in May 2023. It means that there is a framework in place for exchange for next academic year, and also the UK government has introduced a new programme called Turing to replace Erasmus, and I'll touch on that later on in the presentation. So the programme, the Erasmus study placement study programme, allows students to undertake a study exchange for either one semester or one academic year. Exchanges are open to most schools. However, some disciplines and year groups are restricted. The programme itself is open to any students from any nationality, and there is financial support available through the Erasmus grant. This amounts to either €370 or €420 per month, depending on the cost of living of your host country. And as an example, Sweden, with a high cost of living, students going there would receive €420 per month, whereas Spain would be determined as a low cost of living, so students there would receive around €370 per month. In terms of tuition fees, students who normally qualify for UK student support or loans and who spend a full year in Erasmus placement will pay no tuition fees to Queen's. This doesn't apply to to international students. The fee waiver, is agreed at the start of each academic year by the Department for the Economy, and we would hope that it would be in place for next academic year, but we would just have to wait for clarification towards the end of the year. But again, we hope that it will be in place. Students who spend part of the year or one semester on an Erasmus placement pay the normal full tuition fee to Queen's. So applications for undertaking an Erasmus study placement, what we would advise is you go on to our website and look at all the links that you can go to within your school. And once you've got narrowed down where you'd like to go, contact the Erasmus Programme Director in your school. This is where the applications are made through. The details of who the Erasmus Programme Director for your school are on our website. They look after the academic side of the programmes, the academic aspects, whereas we would look after the likes of the Erasmus grant and kind of the links with the different institutions. The closing date for applications is usually around about March, and this is in line with the deadlines, the nomination deadlines to the host institutions. We will be running an Erasmus study information session on Wednesday, the 17th of November, and you can sign up to that through My Future. So there's more details on My Future. So in terms of Erasmus Work, we provide funding for work placements also who can meet the criteria for Erasmus funding. The placement must be a recognised part of your degree, and the duration of the placement must be a minimum of 2 months, with funding potentially up to 12 months if you're on a 12-month placement. Placements can be anywhere in Europe, and if they are in the Republic of Ireland, funding may be through the Turing scheme rather than Erasmus. Again, similar to Erasmus Study, it's open to students of any nationality to apply for this funding. And then also similarly, there is financial support through the Erasmus grant. This amounts to about €470 or €520, again, depending on the cost of living of your host country. In terms of tuition fees, students who normally qualify for UK support loans, and again, who spend a full year on Erasmus placement wouldn't pay any tuition fees to Queen's. Similarly to Erasmus Study, that does not apply to international students. You just pay the normal fees to Queen's. Again, students who spend the part of the year on an Erasmus Work placement would pay the normal tuition fees to Queen's. Applications are a little bit different for this. They're made through your placement office. So once you contact your placement office and organise the placement through them, they will provide you with the application form. And then once you complete it, it comes through to our office. We would ask that their applications are made as soon as possible. And we have a kind of a cut-off, which is, I suppose, a little bit fluid, but we kind of look at about 8 weeks prior to the commencement of your placement, if you can get that form through to ourselves. You can find out more information on Erasmus Study and Erasmus Work Placements on our website, which is www.qub.ac.uk/Erasmus. So I mentioned before about touching on the Turing scheme. The current Erasmus programme ends in May 2023, and the UK government decided against associating with the successor programme, which is due to begin after that. Instead, it introduced a new programme called Turing. So what does this mean for you? In terms of Erasmus Study Exchange, we'll still have a framework to send and receive students on the Erasmus programme up until May 2023. And we will use Erasmus funding for those placements. After that date, after 2023, we'll be asking our partners to continue with these Erasmus links through the Turing scheme. For work placements in mainland Europe, we will continue to use Erasmus funding for the Erasmus grants, with any placements to the Republic of Ireland being funded through the Turing scheme. As Turing is a new source of funding with a global viewpoint rather than just Europe, we may see the introduction of new international partners across the world, as well as maybe short and potentially summer programs being introduced as well. But we will provide more guidance on that through my future if those programs are set up. We would hope to provide also more information on the Turing scheme later in the year. So for those thinking of doing an Erasmus study, or going out an Erasmus work placement during next academic year, that's not to the Republic of Ireland, you'll still be funded through the Erasmus funds, and the study links will still be available up until May 2023. After May 2023, we would hope that we will still have those links in place, but it will be through the Turing scheme. So we're going to hear from some of our students now, and if I can ask Thomas, Michelle and Emer to just turn on your mics and on your cameras now, and we'll go through a few questions with them. So first of all, folks, thanks very much again for coming along. It's always, I can speak for hours on the different programs, but it's always better to hear for 5 minutes from yourselves, because it means so much more, because you've been there, you've lived the program, and you've experienced it as well. So I might get you to do a quick introduction just to yourself, your year of study, and your Queen's experience to be. I suppose because you're the first picture there, Emer, I might get you to start, and just a quick 30 seconds.
Yeah, sure. My name is Emer. I study international business with French. I'm now in my final year, and last year I undertook a compulsory work placement in Luxembourg, and I worked for EY. I worked in the HR recruitment team, and yeah, so I started in October 2020, and I came home there in July 2021. So kind of at an awkward point with the pandemic and everything, but luckily I was able to go, and I received all of my Erasmus funding, and yeah, it was a great experience.
Thanks very much, Emer. Michelle, same for yourself, just a quick overview.
Okay, so I'm Michelle. I study law and Spanish, and I'm currently in my final year. So last year I was able to only undertake a semester just because of COVID. So I went in the start of February, and I came back in July there, and it was honestly amazing. I had so much fun. I studied in Spain, so it was such a really good opportunity to be able to study in Spanish and learn Spanish. So I really enjoyed myself.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Michelle. And finally, Thomas, to yourself.
Yeah, I'm Thomas. I do international business with French as well. And last year I was also in Luxembourg, although I went out a wee bit earlier than Ema did. I did a July 2020 to August 2021, so just about a year-long stint there. And yeah, I really had a great experience as well. No complaints on my part. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose I'll stick with yourself, Thomas. Why did you choose Luxembourg to go to? I know that your course requires a placement, and you're studying French, so obviously there's links there. But what made you think about Luxembourg and Naples?
To be brutally honest, with the pandemic situation, it was the only placement that that I got offered that I was successful in getting. So for me, and in terms of the situation at that time, it was either not do a placement or take this one up in Luxembourg. And whilst I was apprehensive to begin with, because to be honest, I'd never really heard too much about Luxembourg, let alone been there. It turned out to be completely the correct decision, and I have absolutely no regrets whatsoever.
Brilliant. And I suppose, Emer, I'll ask you the same question. You know, you're a compulsory placement. You had to go out. You probably could have went to France. You know, what was your thinking?
Yeah, for me it was a wee bit different. I got mine quite early in the year, so in my second year I secured it. I would say quite early, and the reason I secured it that early was because I was really interested in EY as a company. So my focus was actually the company rather than the country. And then Kieran McMullen from the placement office, which a lot of people probably know, pointed me in the direction of Kerry Smith, who was she's a graduate, or she's been graduate a few years now from Queen's, and that's where she did her placement. So for me, it was more about working with EY or one of the big four, and then Luxembourg was just kind of a coincidence. But just like Tom, I had an amazing time, and I would encourage other people to take a chance with Luxembourg and go there, and not just don't be afraid to go away from France or Belgium. You can try other French-speaking countries.
Yeah, no, really good advice. Yeah, brilliant. And I suppose, Michelle, again, yours would have been a compulsory placement. What made you choose Salamanca, the University of Salamanca?
So we had three options. We had a choice between Zaragoza, which is near Barcelona, Madrid, or Salamanca, and I'd been in contact with students who'd graduated from my course, and a lot of them said Salamanca is the best place to go. And I was like, oh, why is that? And they're just saying because it's so central. It's quite a small city that you're able to you can walk everywhere. Everything's really cheap. It's got a really good kind of balance between study and nightlife. I think it's one of Spain's biggest Erasmus student cities. So that kind of really drove me to go there, because I really wanted a experience where I could meet loads of different students from all across the world. So it really proved the best, because I met people from just everywhere.
Yeah, you know what? One of the things that always interests me is the first week, the first couple of weeks, and how sometimes students would kind of suffer from homesickness, or you kind of go out there and you realise I'm so far away from home. I'll stick with yourself, Michelle. How did you get on in those first weeks, and was it a real culture shock? How did you get kind of integrated into life in Spain?
It was kind of a culture shock, because when I left, everything in Ireland was completely shut down. But when I went to Spain, everything was open. So there was just people everywhere, and that was kind of a bit of took time to get used to. But I didn't really get homesick a lot. I was kind of really just trying to take advantage of the whole opportunity, because I genuinely didn't think I'd get any Erasmus opportunity at all. But Salamanca had a lot of Irish bars, weirdly, so we would go to the Irish bars, and it would just be just sitting in a pub back home. And Salamanca also had a lot of other Irish students as well who studied in Trinity or UCD, so we all kind of made up a group, and then it was just kind of a little bit of home was with us, so it was handy enough.
Yeah, and I suppose I'll go to yourself, Thomas. The same sort of question to you. Again, going out to Luxembourg. Luxembourg to me is alien. It's just a tiny, wee small country in the middle of Europe. How did you get on those first few weeks?
The first few weeks were always going to be difficult, seeing as it was a completely new place, and I was this was before Ema had come over to Luxembourg, so I was kind of completely by myself. But for me, what I found the best way to make friends, for me personally anyway, is to join the local rugby club. So as soon as I got there, I got in contact with Rugby Club Luxembourg, and through them, I kind of got to know all the rugby boys in Luxembourg, who became some of my best friends. But also the first 3 months in my accommodation, I was lucky enough that one of the other people I was living with was one of the old UL Limerick interns who was just coming to the end of her contract there. So she put me in contact with the new Limerick interns who were coming over to Luxembourg. And then through that, we kind of formed, similarly to Michelle there, a kind of a big group of Irish interns, plus me being kind of like the token English bloke who kind of just went around for all of them. And similarly, yeah, there was a weirdly large amount of Irish bars in Luxembourg. So we were kind of floating around there, then meeting all the older Irish who were out there. So yeah, the first few weeks were, slightly tough, but everything kind of fell into place after that.
Yeah, there seems to be a common theme here with Irish bars, but I suppose it is, you mentioned there about joining the rugby club, and we would always advise students going out on whether it's study or workplaces, to help with that integration in the first few weeks is, join clubs and get to know people, and it just helps so much to get over the homesickness and get integrated into life. So I suppose, Emer, similar to yourself, maybe you had Thomas to maybe lean on when you got there, but how did you get on in those first few weeks?
Yeah, so I did have Tom, and that was great because he was out there a few months before me, so it meant he kind of had a group of people that he knew already and introduced me to them, so that was a really big help. Apart from that, in work, I find that kind of getting to know your colleagues, like other interns and so on, everyone's there kind of for the same reason, so if you just keep that in mind, that everyone else is nervous and everyone else is also on Erasmus, so that was a really good way to kind of integrate. And then also you'll probably end up staying in a shared accommodation or something like that. So getting to know your roommates is really important because that's kind of like a home for you then. And I kind of really formed great friendships with people I never would have expected to meet, like people from Brazil, people from Portugal, just places I never would have gone for Erasmus. And so it was great to meet those people in Luxembourg because it's so international. So I would say, yeah, just reach out to the people you see every day and try to form lots of friendships, as many as you can.
Yeah, you mentioned about accommodation, and it's probably something that everybody thinks about when they're thinking about going on any of these opportunities. How was your accommodation, Emer? How did you get on with it? What was it like?
Mm-hmm. For me, well, in Luxembourg, there's only really two kind of options, and both of them are agencies that are shared accommodation. So I found it through the help of Kieran McMullen in the placement office, and also Kerry Smith, who got me my placement or kind of introduced me to the EY. So for that, it was quite difficult because it's a lot of time and money to put down, because you have to put down things like a deposit. It's not really like student accommodation, it's just shared housing with people of any age or whatever. So that was quite difficult to navigate. But I think at the end of the day, everybody was kind of in the same boat. If you chatted to people at work, they'd be like, oh, I'm with that agency, I'm with that. I live with 6 people, oh, I live with, 12 people. So everybody was pretty much in the same boat in Luxembourg, and everyone who worked in like the corporate world was also like living in the same kind of circumstances. So it was good because you could get advice from people regarding that. But yeah, at the start it was hard to find and to navigate because everything is also quite expensive over there. The living costs are quite high. So I'm sure Tom was the same, because we were kind of uncertain if we were going out or not. Putting down such a deposit was quite intimidating, but it all paid off in the end, and luckily there was kind of things put in place to protect us for COVID and everything, so it was fine.
Yeah, and I'll ask the same question to yourself, Michelle. You're going out to Salamanca. Did you live in university halls, or how did you find the accommodation and the overall kind of costs of living out there?
So 3 of us went out together at the one time. So we decided, because we weren't too sure what the whole pandemic situation was like, so we decided we'd live together, and we ended up just going for an Airbnb just because we thought that might be the safest kind of option to go. just with the pandemic, and so we weren't living with people that we didn't really know and stuff like that. But we found the cost of living was quite cheap in the sense because like drinks in Spain are quite cheap, the food's quite cheap. To go out for meals and like enjoy yourself, it was quite cheap. So we kind of tried to make the most out of that. And then one of my other friends from Queen's who came out, she stayed in university halls, and that was kind of really cool because she would introduce us to like all these flatmates that she was with who were actually native Spanish speakers, and it was really interesting to kind of get, like, even though we didn't stay in the halls, we still kind of got to interact and meet people who lived there as well. So it was really cool.
Yeah, I suppose I mentioned a couple, but accommodation is one of the things that you know, is a stress point, I suppose, for students going out on global opportunities. What we would always advise is, you know, try and do your research early, and you know, look about where, you know, if it is a study placement, looking at if the university has halls of residence, if they're open to international students, if they don't, where can you get accommodation? And the quicker it's done, the more you'll start to enjoy your experience then when you get over. Thomas, what about the skills that you gain from your experience? You know, your professional and personal skills. Obviously, you're in a work environment. How did you learn many skills that you could use going forward in your career?
So obviously my internship was in client accounting, which kind of doesn't have too much similarity with the course I'm doing here at Queen's. It was kind of a whole new area that I needed to get my head around. So it was a lot of like perseverance, determination, time management. And then also, as Ema said, Luxembourg's such an international place. So a lot of the people you'll be working with are from every corner of the earth. So it's kind of getting your head around how to interact with each nationality, because everyone has their own ways of doing things. And it's how to keep on top of that, so you're doing things in the most like efficient way. But in terms of like personal, it was more just that now I know that if after uni I was going to go somewhere different, somewhere abroad, like America, Canada, or anywhere really, I could do it because I've just spent a year doing that. So now after I finish uni, I'm heavily considering leaving the UK and Ireland and going further afield just because I know I can.
Yeah, and you were a lot of students say, would you agree with that, Michelle and Emer? A lot of students would say that after doing a global experience.
Yeah, it definitely gives you like an added sense of just you become more confident in yourself and like your ability to like navigate through a brand new place that you've never been, and you've done the hard part, which is putting yourself out there, getting out and doing new experiences, and I think you kind of find a lot about yourself when you do stuff like this. And for me, it's definitely just like Tom. I'm definitely considering working in Europe 100% just because I know that I can do it. I can find like go there and integrate in and just find a really good experience there.
Yeah. And what about yourself? Same as well, Emer?
Yeah, I think the same. I think that by the time you leave your international placement, whether it was study or work, you're almost like a different person. You kind of have a new outlook and you have a new view on yourself. Like for me, EY just chewed me up and spat me out, to be honest, and I just became hyper efficient. I think if I went into a grad job now, I would definitely take those skills with me, just the efficiency, time management and everything like Tom said. So yeah, absolutely, really, really valuable, and you kind of feel a bit like you can take on the world. Then after that, you just feel very fearless and confident in yourself.
Yeah, well, look, a couple of things. Tomorrow we've got the Go Global Virtual International Fair, which has got loads of organisations coming along that offer, you know, graduate opportunities and undergrad opportunities and postgrad opportunities as well. And also next week we've got the Graduate Recruitment and Placement Fair. So there'll be loads of domestic opportunities and opportunities all over the world. So those are two great events for anybody thinking about doing any global opportunities or working globally to get to. We're going to probably try to wrap up now a wee bit, folks, but I suppose, is there any specific experiences that you remember from your time either in Luxembourg or Spain that really stand out and really kind of typify your global experience? I'll come to yourself, Emer, first. That, you know, anything that you stands out.
Yeah, I'd probably say generally meeting people from all different countries that I said before I never thought I'd meet. And secondly, probably the trips that we got to go on. So Luxembourg, if anyone doesn't know, is like slap bang in the middle of Europe. It borders Germany, Belgium and France. So we got to go to Germany and also Belgium on some trips, and also into the countryside of Luxembourg away from the city, which is kind of like somewhere you would never go for work. Everything's kind of central. So we got to discover that landscape and everything. So those experiences for me are really stand out, and the people I've met, definitely number one.
What about yourself, Michelle?
So yeah, definitely the same traveling. Whenever I went to Spain, you weren't allowed to travel without the region. So I was like stuck inside the region of like Castile and Leon, which turned out to be a good thing because there was, I guess, an Erasmus trip group. So they organized trips for Erasmus students, and we all signed up and went, and we were able to meet loads of people from like France, from Tennessee, from Texas, from Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, places that you'd never have the exposure of meeting these people. And so we went trips throughout like the region of Castile and Leon, which is honestly, it's so stunning, and I genuinely don't think I would have been able to see that if I didn't go with this group. And then like I went to Barcelona just after the whole country kind of opened up, and I just remember it was like one of those like out of body experiences where like everyone was just on the beach, fireworks were going off, and you was just like, this is amazing. So yeah, definitely the whole travel side of it and just experiencing the country was just and meeting new people was, yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, brilliant. And yourself, Thomas?
Yeah, it's a common theme, but I'd say the travel. We kind of tried to get into every European country that we could feasibly possibly get into, which led to us going to Romania for a long weekend, which is somewhere I never thought I would be going on holiday before, and it turned out to be one of the best trips of my life, really. But more than that, it was kind of just the social life away from working, because when you're doing like a work Erasmus trip, there's so much more to that whole year or how many months you're there than just the work, as much as that is like the main reason why you're going. Like most like weekends that we weren't traveling, it was just our big group of kind of like Luxembourgish and Irish friends just going around and just chilling in parks or going to the pubs or something like that. So yeah, it's as much this social experience as well.
Brilliant. Brilliant, folks. One last question I will ask is that, do you find yourselves that you've built up any new skills from doing it? Is your, like, and when I'm talking about skills, I mean more like your confidence and your resilience. Would you agree, and I'm not going to ask this to anybody specifically, just, would you agree that, it helps not only of your career, but also your kind of personal outlook and your confidence and your resilience? And anybody can answer that. Or if nobody wants to answer, you can just nod your heads.
So like I study Spanish, and before I kind of went out there, I kind of wasn't really confident in my skills, but now that I've studied at a Spanish uni, I've handed in assignments that are in Spanish. I've talked to people, native Spanish speakers, and just having like the Spanish speakers be like, oh yeah, your Spanish is really good. You kind of like get like a wee bit of a lift and a buzz, and coming back, I've kind of find myself kind of being way more confident and handing in Spanish assignments and just like speaking out and with my Spanish, which is something I probably wouldn't have necessarily done before, and just branching out a bit more and looking for more kind of Spanish opportunities as well, which is it has really lifted my confidence level in terms of my fluency and stuff. So it was pretty good, big buzz.
But yeah, we would kind of, when we're talking to students who have come back from these sort of experiences, and maybe even talking to them from before they go out, you can see, the enthusiasm and the confidence and just flowing with them. So look, folks, thank you very much for coming along and sharing your experience. Really, really appreciate it. And I hope that any of our students coming along and hearing about it today will kind of consider doing a global experience from hearing from you. So look, I'll get you to switch off your cameras and your mics. But again, thanks very much for coming along. And look, I'll hand back over to Rory, who will continue on with the session.
Thanks very much, Conleth. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank the students as well. I find that very, very interesting. It's great to hear about your first-hand experiences and how you get on. In terms of sort of the next few slides, I just want to share some further international European opportunities with you. The first one is European Movement Ireland. It's an independent, not-for-profit organisation, and its aim is basically to build collaboration between sort of Europe, the EU, and the institutions of the European Union. Interesting enough, it's the oldest Irish organisation dealing with the EU, and it was set up in 1954. This actually predates sort of Ireland's membership of the EEC in 1973. So I suppose there's a good use of my history and politics degree. For yourselves as students, though, the EMI provides an excellent service for raising awareness of the career opportunities in the EU. So on an annual basis, they produce what's called the Green Book. And the Green Book is a guide to living and working in Brussels and Strasbourg. It's written from first-hand experiences from trainees, graduates, and sort of experienced professionals. It gives you insights into what traineeships and what graduate jobs are available, but it also gives you that sort of first-hand information on what it's like to sort of live and work within the sort of EU cities and sort of, how to progress your career within those. The best thing for you to do if you are interested in sort of getting this information is to go onto the European Movement Ireland website, and you can sign up, and on a weekly basis you'll receive sort of job updates, you receive sort of events and programs that are happening, and just basically gives you a weekly reminder if you want to have a look at sort of jobs in the future. Say I signed up a few years ago, and on a weekly basis I receive these emails, and every now and again I'll just look in and see what opportunities are available. And it's very, very useful, very interesting information for students. In terms of the next provider, I just want to introduce Language Bureau. So the Students Language Bureau is effectively a student job platform. It was developed originally by two students, Jennifer and Cameron. Jennifer and Cameron have come over to Queen's on a number of occasions to basically showcase what the Student Language Bureau is about. But what they offer is sort of gap years, internships, summer jobs and graduate jobs throughout Europe and different parts of the world. Jennifer and Cameron developed the business themselves based on experiences that they had of living and working abroad as students, and thought themselves, right, well, there surely is a better way to do this. What we can do is provide a more personalised service to students and support students a lot better. In terms of that sort of support and service, one of the things they do on top of just advertising and support students to get jobs and internships is provide advice on accommodation. And I suppose Michelle and Emer and Tom would all sort of testify that finding accommodation in a different country can be quite stressful at times, and this is often a challenge students face. But the Student Language Bureau are there to sort of support students in sort of navigating the accommodation aspect of your experience. In terms of the service itself, it's a free service. I mentioned that it is personalised, so they will try and support you in finding a job that suits you in a location and an interest and an industry that you're interested in. And again, similar to European Movement Ireland, go onto the website and register with them, and then you'll be able to get regular updates and be able to see some of the opportunities advertised. I had a look this morning, and had quite a few jobs in various parts of the world. So there's internships in Barcelona and Madrid, there's graduate jobs in Paris, there was teaching jobs in Hong Kong and Shanghai, and there's a good range of locations and a good range of jobs available. So folks, in terms of the final opportunity I'd like to draw your attention to is that of summer schools. So from time to time, we'll get students coming to ask us about what summer schools would we recommend, or what advice would we give in terms of looking for summer schools. Well, first and foremost, a lot of universities offer summer schools over the sort of July and August period. It's very difficult for us to say, well, this is a definitive list of all the universities we would recommend. But if you have one on one mind, come and book in for a virtual appointment and we can have a chat about it. Just by way of example, this summer we funded 12 students to take part in online summer schools at Utrecht University. So the students were able to do courses such as financial law, students did one on new technologies, European politics and European economy, and also a student did one on global transformations. The feedback from that particular summer school was very, very good, and the students would definitely recommend it. I think the only problem was that it was online, and there is definitely an eagerness for students to sort of travel out and do these in person. In terms of summer schools, the main advice is to sort of look at the university and the reputation. go online and look at the course. So it could be a course that sort of builds on your existing knowledge. It could be something that sort of delves into a different area of your course or your subject area that you're just interested in, or it could just be something that you would like to try and learn a bit more about. Also, just consider the costs. So we have seen courses that range from €100 right up to courses that cost €1,500. You also have to factor then the cost of accommodation, travel, and then day-to-day costs. So do a bit of research, consider what you are getting for the money that you're paying, but also, come and speak to us sort of in semester 2 and inquire about scholarships. So in terms of sort of funding, we may potentially have funding for students to go on summer schools next year, but also reach out to your faculty and your schools because they also may have some funding or scholarships available. In terms of just sort of the final few slides, I just want to remind you about some of the other events that we have taking place. So tomorrow we have our main Go Global Fair, and as Conleth mentioned, we have a whole range of organisation and exhibitors coming along. So my advice is to go online between 12 and 2 and just really get engaged and ask them very specific questions and find out as much information as possible. They are very keen to speak with you and sort of engage with you. On Thursday, we have our final information session, and that is focusing on the opportunities available in Asia. And similar to today, we'll just go through the opportunities. We'll have a few students that participated in programs in Asia and just give you an insight into the programs. If you have missed any of the information sessions so far, so the 2 that took place yesterday, feel free to drop us an email and we can send you a recording of that. Just finally, if you have any questions that you haven't already put in the chat, you can email us at goglobal@qub.ac.uk. We've included our telephone number, but at the minute we are sort of working sort of a few days in the office and then the rest of the week at home. So my advice is just in the first instance, drop us an email because they're quite possibly there won't be someone in the office to answer the phone, but at least if you drop by email, you'll be guaranteed a response. It's also been mentioned we have our drop-in sessions, so you can go onto My Future and book a 15-minute video call, and it's just an opportunity for us to have an informal conversation with you about, broadly what we offer, but also then if you want, just talk about more specific programs in detail, and it's just a very informal 15-minute chat. Just finally, I'm just going to show a short video, and whilst we're showing it, if there's any further questions you want to put in the chat, we can address them or just answer them after the video is over.
So I do see a couple of questions that have come through, but I think my colleague Donna might have answered them. Eleanor has asked, when's the next Erasmus talk? There's Erasmus talk on the 17th of November, and you can sign up through My Future to go along to that. And I just will put up one last link, if I can, for the fair. If you just bear with me 1 second. So the fair, the international fair, is taking place tomorrow from 12 to 1. Sorry, this link is just not working at the minute. Typical, but it doesn't work just when you need it.
I'd add it in here, Conley, sure.
Oh, thank you very much, Roy.
So that's the link to the fair, and I'm just going to drop in a very quick link to the information session tomorrow, so the opportunities in Asia. If I'm sure there'll be quite a bit of interest in that as well. Apart from that, I think that's all the questions covered. And if there's sort of any other questions students have, we'll get them just to email goglobal@qub.ac.uk, or just have a wee chat with book in for a virtual one-to-one appointment.
Brilliant, thanks for that. And look, we'll just finally thank our 3 students for coming along today and sharing their experience. And we would hope to see everybody at the fair tomorrow. There's, like I said before, there's 35 organisations offering work, study and volunteering opportunities there. So even if this is just your starting point, or you want to talk to a specific organisation, it's worth registering and coming along and finding out more information. So, folks, we'll leave it there and we'll wrap up. So, thanks for coming along today. We hope it has proved useful. And yeah, we'll sign off.
Thanks very much, everyone, for coming along. Bye bye.